All right, tech car and gun fanatics, welcome back to the channel. We have a guest today. This guy is super amazing. He is most definitely an expert, when it comes to purchasing a firearm. He has a lot of background in this, and we're going to give you guys some very crucially important information today on the process. It's actually going to be a lot more information than you need, but it's always good to have that information when you're looking at something like this. So we have Matthew here. What's up, Matthew?
How's it going, everybody?
And just to get started, I just want to get a little bit of history, about you, Matthew, and your background. How long have you actually been selling firearms to the public?
So I've been selling firearms for at least 10 years now, probably leaning more towards 11 or so. There's just a lot of things that we see it on both ends of the counter, whether I'm purchasing a firearm and I see other people purchasing, and you kind of see some issues there. But also from behind the counter, there are some things that make one of those, if the public knew just certain guidelines, helps the process go smoothly. So there are some things that we could talk about. There are some things that we're not technically supposed to talk about. So I'm going to try my best to address some of those major issues within those so-called clearance level details. So we will go over that.
Very good.
As I've worked everything from larger retailers such as Bass Pro Shops to your smaller mom and pop shops, both in the state of Tennessee and out of the state of Tennessee. So you get into the background check system as what is supposed to work universally in the country, and then you get into the more unique setup for Tennessee, which isn't too far off.
Perfect. So 11 years of service of selling firearms, good firearm etiquette. You're pretty much familiarized with this process, correct?
Correct. So,
all right.
For the most part, it's here's what works, here's what doesn't work. So,
all right. Well, you sold me firearms, so I appreciate it. Yeah. And you really helped me through the process, and you were amazing with that process. So before we jump into this, I'm going to read something here that I have written down that I think that's important for the audience and the subscribers. And thank you so much, guys, for coming through. We really appreciate you guys. We're on the road to 1K, and we're almost there. So it's going to be a good thing. But I want to go ahead and tell them this. Guys, okay, when you purchase a firearm, purchase a firearm not based off what a bunch of people are saying, but what feels comfortable to you. Hold the gun, and also keep in mind you can rent an actual firearm. You can rent the gun of your choice at a shooting range and practice with it first. This in turn will let you know if it's a good fit for you before you purchase the gun. So I just wanted to get that out there to the audience to let them know that, because that's something that I wasn't familiarized with, that I should have done, go to the range, renting a gun out to see if I really, really like it. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes. And the thing is, kind of same mentality is when you're looking at firearm purchases, look at it as the same way as a vehicle. It's not recommended to buy a vehicle without test driving it. It's always ideal to test something out. Whenever you buy a pair of tennis shoes, you always put them on to make sure they fit right. Same thing applies. And proper gun fit goes into better accuracy. It's not completely proven, but it does help out with you being more effective with that firearm. Another thing, at least getting into firearm purchasing, is when you go into a shop, there are good salesmen and there are bad salesmen.
Wait, we can't hear you, Matthew.
Can you hear me now?
Repeat that. Sorry to cut you off. It was going in and out. Say that again.
So there is a difference between good salesmen and bad salesmen. Unfortunately, they're a little harder to find the difference between the two. So to make things easier, have yourself set up within basically, I am looking for hunting firearms. I am looking for self-defense firearms. I am looking for, get yourself some certain parameters and boundaries. So that way you're not looking at things that aren't really up your alley. Price range does have a key point too. If you go into a firearm dealer or retailer and say that you have a price range of nothing more than $800, that's a wide variety of firearms, but it does give that salesman an idea of where to go with. So that way, I'm
Okay.
not showing you these top custom firearms. I can actually show you what's in that box.
Perfect. No, that's perfect. And we appreciate you
Mhm,
giving us the information. So I have the first question here for you, okay?
mhm.
What type of um, identification will a person need when they're trying to purchase a firearm? What would they need? Like
So
just the basics.
ideally, a Tennessee state driver's license. Well, driver's license in general. Since we are in Tennessee, you will hear me say Tennessee. So Tennessee state driver's license, ID or identification only card will work, or a carry permit will work. Those are the top three that will work. It is um, probably in your best interest to have everything on your driver's license match. You can use the paper ID cards that they give you, the temp cards, as long as it's within 30 days of being issued. So if you get a temporary ID card yesterday, uh, July 1st, you have until the
Hmm.
30th to use that card. Typically, they send you the whole card in the mail within a couple of weeks. So once you start getting past that 30-day mark, it's almost at least a proper shop will tell you, hey, you might want to contact the state to get the ID or figure that out. If you do not have proper paperwork, there are supplements. Unfortunately, that is one of those things that we're not technically supposed to say what it is or what constitutes those, but they are typically government issued and they are not included as a bill. It's typically something that says that you live in a particular area from the government. So you get into
Okay.
those interests.
And that could be different. Well, of course, we're talking about in Tennessee because we live in Nashville, Tennessee. But
Mhm.
depending on different states, they're going to have probably a different process, maybe. Or
Correct. And larger shops such as Bass Pro Shops, we have worked with helping you figure out what exactly supplementals are. Smaller gun shops, if you don't have the proper paperwork, it's not uncommon for them to say, "Hey, come back until you have the proper paperwork."
very good. And just to let you guys know, he has worked for a very well-renowned company, a very big company. We're not going to disclose what company he's worked for, but it was one really big company, and he's worked for other ones also, which gives him the expertise to talk about this. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, so very good on that question. That was a really good one. How many questions will an individual need to answer, and what type of questions are they? If you can answer that for me.
So most of them are I can't disclose how many questions or the parameters of what they include, but they typically include personal questions over your background. You have to answer these honestly. Some of them are incredibly simple, and other ones get into a little touchier. Um, so that's kind of the big setup there. So they go over everything, as mentioned. Personal background, they ask you some criminal um, background if you have done certain activities. It could possibly uh, disqualify you from purchasing a firearm at that moment. It could also disqualify you indefinitely, at least at that retailer, depending on their discretion.
Very good. That's really good. Okay, so it's very important to answer those questions honestly, because I have a
Mhm.
homeboy, a friend, that we went in and he made a mistake with one question, man. And you know what they did? They denied the whole thing, and he had to wait freaking 30 days before he could go back in and answer the question correctly again. So
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure you're
So
familiarized with that, right?
yeah, so it's not uncommon. Definitely take your time when answering these questions. By no means should they be rushing you. Um, it's one of those things that taking the time to answer the questions properly. I don't know how many times I'm going to use the term fat finger. as a technical terminology, where you're sitting there, you rush through it, and you make a mistake. And unfortunately, depending on what you answer, could really make things interesting in the future. So the biggest point when answering those is not only answer honestly, but take your time. If you don't understand something, you could obviously ask the retailer to help out the best that they can. Now, they cannot legally answer any of those questions for you. That is another big issue
Okay.
that I have heard is, oh, how do I answer this? Well, I will basically ask the question to you, um, and almost rephrase the question to it's a little bit easier to understand. But most retailers will sit there and try to, this is what it's asking you, and I can't legally answer it. And we try to make it vocal, and you end up getting the repeat box. As you'll kind of hear, is they no longer turn into that human mentality. They just kind of redo that same record over and over again until you understand it. So
Right. Okay. Very good. So thank you for telling us that. That's some important information right there, because some people can run into some roadblocks. So that's good to know. Next question here. Uh, are there any fees if you get approved? Now, of course, I know a lot of these answers, but you're the expert. So are there any fees if you get approved? Is because
so
when I first went there, it was a little shocker. It was a small fee, but it was a shocker that it was a fee.
So there is a, at least
I
nationwide,
think
there is
I
a
think you're
fee to
frozen a
run.
little bit. Start over for me.
Okay, so am I good now? Okay, so there is a fee nationwide for $10 to run the background check. That $10 typically goes to the state
Okay.
agency or federal agency running your background check. That's pretty much it. It's a $10 fee. Now, there are some things, and you will see this in your smaller gun shops. Typically, um, I have seen it once or twice. These particular gun shops will charge a little bit more for that background check. I will warn people that when you see that, it is a sign that um, they're either being penalized by the state or federal system because of issues with background checks, or they're covering up something a little bit more sketchy, to say the least. But the standard is $10, and the shop does not make any money off of that background check. So, as a note, whenever you transfer a firearm to a gun shop, even though you paid for that firearm at another retailer and you had it sent to them,
That
uh,
that
that
FFL
$10
fee.
check, they
Yeah.
don't make any money. So they typically try to have something like an FFL transfer. Um,
Yep.
Typically, it ranges anywhere between $75 to about $150, and it's just so that shop can pay for some overhead. Um, Obviously, we all try to get the cheapest price that we can from a reputable gun shop, but again, a lot of shops are trying to raise up that fee a little bit more because they don't make money off of just doing a background check. So
Right. Okay. Okay. Very good. Yeah. So they need to know that, because that was a little shocker, even though it wasn't like a
yeah,
lot.
it
It
definitely
wasn't a
gets
lot of
people.
money.
Yeah, it definitely gets people concerned when you say, "Okay, I'm charging you a $10 fee," and they don't understand why. It is just to run the background check.
Yeah. You said it definitely concerns people about that fee. You said you kind of chopped
Mhm.
out.
Yeah, so it kind of catches some newer gun buyers out. I personally try to tell them, "Are you new to the?" You'll typically get questions such as, "Are you new to the industry? Are you a new firearm owner?" Things like that. I'll try to find the newbies out there. We love you guys, but again, we try to guys so we can kind of educate you on the process so it's not as scary. That's no matter how long you've been buying firearms, there can be those moments where, yeah, they're running a background check and there's always some uncertainty. We all understand. So I try to make the process wide open
Right.
and as clear as possible. Now, I cannot vouch. I am unique on that one. There are retailers out there that would really like you not to know the process. They just want to run your paperwork and get you out of the store. That's just kind of how the
Right.
cookie crumbles. So,
That's not
just
good.
not all retailers are good at selling firearms. They will do the paperwork properly, but in terms of personality, they could be lacking. I've seen it. They're great guys out of there, but when you have to run a background check with them, they're awfully stern and like to keep to themselves and quiet. And, that's just kind of how much you get.
All right. Okay, so we got another one here. How long does it usually take to get approved? Usually, on average, you would say.
On average, at least in the state of Tennessee, um, within 30 minutes of a background check. Now, the background checks vary. At least in the state of Tennessee, the program that they use is TICS, which is the Tennessee Instant Check System. It's basically Tennessee Bureau of Investigations does all of the background checks for the state. So some background checks on some days takes longer for me to type in your information into the background check system than it does for it to come back. Other days they get, and it could be hours. Sometimes nationwide the system goes down and you're not able to do the background check that day. So it's a bit touchy. But for the
Okay.
average, I would say about 30 minutes max. After about an hour, you typically hear the retailer start complaining about how much time it takes.
Okay. Very
So,
good. Very good. I think
because
people
we
want to
don't
know
like
that.
waiting just like you guys. So,
Right. But the thing is, we'll talk to you all day. We'll stand
oh,
there,
yeah, yeah.
gun, especially new gun people. We're excited. And we'll talk to you all day, 2-3 hours. You know how me and
Yeah,
you used to
during that
talk.
time while the background check is being ran, if you are new, by all means, bombard that retailer with as many questions as possible. Any information is better than just standing there and waiting. Waiting is the worst, whether it's in the doctor's office or waiting for a firearm check. He likes waiting. So break that gap. Ask him a bunch of questions. Ask him what his favorite gun is. Ask him what his favorite caliber. Just it's small chat, but you gain a lot more from that.
Right. All right.
Ask him
Here
how
we
the
go now.
situation is going.
Oh, we don't want to ask that. That's
Oh
not a
no.
good call. Listen, we could go on 2 or 3 hours,
Oh
from
yeah.
that
Yeah.
conversation.
You might make him go
I got
cross-eyed,
another
but
one
it's
for you.
fun.
Huh?
I said you might make him go cross-eyed, but it's fun.
All right, we got another one here. I got like about 3 or 4 more good questions. Now, is there a limit on how many guns you can purchase? Also, will it get you flagged through the feds if you purchase too many firearms?
So I have seen it on a couple of individuals, and when I say a couple, two max in the 11 years that I've been doing firearms or
Mm-hmm.
firearm purchasing, sales, of that nature. Um, Typically, after about 5 handguns in one day, they will basically say, "Why do you need these?" There is some extra paperwork that has to go on with your paperwork. You don't have to do anything um, for that, um, but there is just some extra paperwork for that retailer FFL to submit with your individual paperwork and firearm purchasing. There's not technically a maximum. Most retailers, after 12 firearm purchases, so say if you're doing a random number like 24, after about 12 firearms, they might have you repay for another background check, which is just another $10 fee. But most people aren't buying more than 4 firearms in one go. The average
Right.
that I see is 3, maybe 4. Occasionally, you'll get into 5. Anything more than that is a real oddity. And again, the people that I have seen that have actually been flagged are individuals that were purchasing they were doing a lot of firearm auctions, and purchasing 10 to
Any
15.
shady business?
It definitely makes you, I wouldn't say shady business, but it was really surprising on some people. One individual in particular, not going to mention any names or anything like that, but he
No,
was
no,
big
no. Yeah,
into
yeah.
auctions and for his safety. And well, I can't say safety, he's probably got us beat, but he was big into auctions and was purchasing probably 20 to 30 firearms in one go, which
Mhm.
again, multiple times a week, and it's just a
Wow.
lot. Somebody that has me
Wow.
going, this is a lot. What are you doing with these? And this also goes into some things where if you were looking at a firearm, some retailers will actually ask you a lot of questions. These questions are
Mhm.
just to weed you out from what is considered a straw purchase. So if you're doing a lot more purchases at one particular location, they will actually start asking you, hey, why do you need 5 of the same firearm?
Right.
Um, Reasons for it is you've got a couple, okay, that's fine. But once you start getting into certain numbers, the retailers actually, it's more of a defensive mechanism to retain their licensing, is all of that.
Right. Okay. All right. That's good stuff. I done lost my page here. Hang on a second.
Yeah,
Technical
I kind of
difficulties,
overheard
man.
it over the radio.
Yeah, this junk. Hang on a sec. Let me get back to it. It's an advertisement that popped up. I hate these things, man. All right, there we go. I have my notes here, of course. All right, sorry to cut you off there. Let's see.
You
All
are
right, so that's
fine.
good. Let me see where I was. So we were at the actual fees, right?
Yeah,
No,
so we've
actually,
gotten fees.
how long does it take to get approved? Basically?
Yeah, so typically about 30 minutes on that one. In terms of firearm checks, I haven't seen anything to where you get flagged for firearm purchasing unless you are purchasing from other FFLs that I cannot track. It
Mm-hmm.
is, I've had it happen a couple of times where this individual can't purchase this firearm at the moment. And they will announce that they are not in trouble, but they have hit a limit. Um, in most of those individuals, you are a very avid firearm purchaser, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Is you have made enough purchases that whatever agency is doing the background checks has announced that you've hit some limit, and that is with them, and it's not known, at least on our level. So that's just kind of on that level.
Okay. So no, actually, I was wrong. I asked you about the limit of how many guns you can purchase. We
Yeah,
went over
yeah.
that already. Okay. All right.
Mhm.
So here goes the next one. Um, can you return a gun if you don't want it, or if it has a defect? This was something that
Now,
shocked me a little bit when I came in. This shocked me when
un-
you read the paperwork to me in the end. So let them know about that.
so unfortunately, when you purchase a firearm, that is yours. You are not legally
Yep.
able to return it. Now, if there is a
Yep.
defect, they are covered underneath the manufacturer's warranty.
That's right.
So most
That's right.
retailers will have a paperwork to where you will fill it out, and we will send it off to the manufacturer for repairs, especially if it is listed of what type of repair it is. So if you say, the trigger isn't working or anything like that, and then the retailer, or not retailer, the manufacturer will be in contact with you to resolve that issue. Some locations and retailers, FFLs, um, have a firearm purchasing program where they will buy the firearm off of you. Just as a warning, if you purchase a firearm, leave that day, come back the next day, you're not going to get money back in full. Um, Firearms are based off of a blue book value, and some models unfortunately don't get the money like others. And it's a wide variety, it's a lengthy process, and ultimately it's a costly mistake for purchasing the wrong firearm. That's kind of where doing your research plays a part. The same thing goes for ammunition. Once you buy ammo, you're not able to return it to that retailer.
Yep.
Now, I can
I was
sell it
shocked on
to
that.
a
You listen, I bought some 350. Sorry to cut you off. I got excited on this. I bought some 357 ammo. I don't know if you know. I bought
I was
357
there. I know which one you
because
bought.
the revolver, and I did not know you couldn't return that crap, man. I paid like $30 for it. I'm still gonna get the gun. I'm still gonna get the revolver, but I didn't know that. So that surprised me. I'm glad you
Yeah,
brought that up. Go ahead and tell them
especially
about that.
when
I'm
you
sorry to cut
get.
you off, man.
Oh no, you were perfectly fine. In terms of ammunition, there are tons of numbers out there. So when you get into 57, you've got 357 SIG and 357 Magnum. One is for a semi-auto, which is where the slide comes backwards. 357 Magnum is your classic revolver round. They are two completely different things, but they have the same number in them. So when at least good retailers will understand that not everybody is nerdy enough to know the difference between the calibers. So I would recommend before you buy ammo, always look to make sure it is the proper thing because unfortunately for federal law, you cannot return any of those. You can still resell them to other people privately, but it is definitely a challenge and you still might not get the money that you paid for it, especially these days. Um, could actually right now you should be able to if you keep your receipt, but I mean if you buy a box of 9mm for $50 and I'm an individual that had purchased 9mm back when it was $11.99, yeah, not fun.
Right.
So again,
So the conclusionary part,
once
they
you
can't
buy it,
return it. They
she
just
is
simply can't
yours.
return it.
Yeah, you could try
Yeah.
to
That
resell
that
it
got
at
me.
certain.
That
Yeah, you could try to resell it, but you're not going to get your money back. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. If you spend $500 on a firearm, you'll be lucky to see about 250.
yeah.
So
So that's
less
some
than
good
half.
information. Thank you for bringing that up. That's very good. All right, I got the next question, and we're almost done here. We're wrapping it up. And I just want to tell you, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to come to my channel, chat with these tech car and gun fanatics, because they some fanatics on my channel. You know, you've seen some of the the comments and stuff like that, but people are cool, man. They're respectful.
Mhm.
You know, I came from basically creating the lamest gun video, I mean, ever, but my best friend was in it and it ended up being a good thing. So I said, why not, blossom out into something bigger? And this is where I'm at, and I want to expand and get bigger than this. So I appreciate you coming out. All right,
Oh
question. We
yeah.
have another question. We have a couple more. All right, so I have that one. What would you tell people not to do or say that's super annoying to you when they're purchasing their first gun?
Do you have any ammo? No, I'm joking. um, One of the things after being a retailer during 2020 and 2021, yeah, ammo question was definitely fun. No, it wasn't. One of the things that really kind of gets me is a lot of people ask me what would I use. The problem is
Right.
when you get into the me as a retailer. One is I'm a gun nut. I'm spending a lot of money on a firearm. Um, when you look at all the base models, it no longer trips your trigger, pun intended. So you
Matthew, hang on
typically,
for me. Stop for a
oh,
second. Matthew,
yep,
can you hear me?
can
Okay, hang on a second. We had some really bad technical difficulties. Hang on. Like it's okay. You're
okay,
back in. You're in the game. Go ahead. You
great.
can repeat what you said.
Okay, so one of the things is when people ask what type of firearm I would purchase. Um, like what would I personally use? And that's where we get into a massive divide. What I would use is completely different than what would actually be your purpose. And more than likely, my price range is well beyond what you actually want to spend. Um, Other applications are most people are right handed. I'm left handed, so certain firearms don't actually work for me or they're awkward to function. Not that I can't function them, they just feel weird and I'm not a big fan of them. So that's kind of where we get into it. Other things are uh, helpful hints. You will hear people, well, what do you think about this gun? And it's almost you'll kind of see us hesitate a little bit. And the reason why is in the industry, you have a lot of older individuals that have been there quite a while and they understand everything about firearms. And there's a little bit of trolling involved. So they will ask you what you think about a firearm. They will listen to what you say, and then they'll turn around and tell you that everything that you just said was garbage. So
Wow.
those are kind of the annoying key term annoying ones is I can't tell you what firearm to purchase because everybody's application is completely different. So I typically like larger firearms, higher end models, custom shops, and things like that. And you might want something a little bit more budget friendly, well
Right.
made, and smaller. It's just two polar opposites there. So those are kind of the big things that kind of get our attention. The other one was just basically the ammo. Unfortunately, it was incredibly popular. You're not going to get around it. So if you ask a question and the retailer immediately turns into a complete jerk, it's probably because he heard that question far too many times. I don't know how many
Yeah.
times Ivan has come up to the counter and has asked a question, and he knew full well what the answer was. He was just driving us nuts. So it's part of the job. As you're going to get the annoying questions, a good retailer will just basically bite their teeth and go through it, but you will get that same regurgitated answer of what works for me isn't going to work for you, and I can't tell you what to buy. That's just kind of one of those. So I think you lost me. Nope. Okay.
Nope, I'm there. I can hear
Okay.
you.
This internet's
So we
fun.
got it. Very good, man. That's very good. We working through it, man. We working through it. I
Yeah,
think it's
man.
gonna be pretty good. All right, and I have two more questions. It's really one left.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell? And this is a reality, so we gotta touch on this subject. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, my subscribers. I have a wide range of a wide demographic. Let me put it that way of
Mm-hmm.
subscribers. So it's everybody up under the rainbow: white, black, green, purple, girls, dudes, everybody. I want them all to come. Asian,
Mm-hmm.
whoever they are, doesn't matter. Mexican, I'm all into it. So, what would you tell a person when they're being introduced to the 2A community, which was predominantly and is still predominantly governed by our Caucasian brothers and sisters when they go to try to purchase a firearm? And it's going to be a deep question. So when they go to
Mm-hmm.
purchase a firearm and they feel as if, or if there's an interaction where there's some low key, hating or discrimination
Mm-hmm.
going on, what would you tell those people, like the response, a proper
Now, at
response
least
level?
for me, I've seen a lot of people in
Because
the
that has
industry,
happened to me.
and
That has
oh
happened to
yeah,
me.
and I have seen it on the other end as well. So it is something that I am highly
Yep.
against. So I am going to lay
Yep.
those down there. But unfortunately, in just about everything, it's there, and
Right.
it's it, it's almost rude to turn your back and say that it's not there when it is. Especially being in smaller, it is possible to see that a little bit more. It's just kind of how it goes. What I would say to those of you that feel that there is some hate going out there, don't let the one guy or the one shop stop you from doing what you want.
Preach.
Whether yeah,
Preach.
you have the same rights as we do, or at least we as in everybody. Um, you have the same rights. Use it. Go out there, get the gear that you want, go out to the range and do it. I have called out numerous people about their attitudes at multiple retailers. So try not to let that mentality discourage you from doing what you want. So that would be what I would like to say on those matters. Just have
That
to
was
move
amazing.
forward.
I mean, that was amazing. And that's exactly what I did because, man, let me tell you something. You know, I'm a people's person and I can feel energy. You know, I use my third eye for that, man. I could feel energy. And it was certain energies from certain people where I said, you know what? I'm not going to let this determine whether or not I purchase a firearm or not, or my
Mm-hmm.
experience. I just went to somebody else. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I did.
Yeah.
You know,
And
sometimes I stayed and shopped at that shop.
yeah. Now, one thing that people don't understand is if you feel uncomfortable doing the paperwork for whatever reason, you can tell that retailer that, no, I really don't feel comfortable doing this and I just don't have the time, or you could come up with multiple excuses. It doesn't cost you anything as long as you do it before you pay for that $10 fee. Um, so while you're say, I see this a lot of times is people are unsure about the firearm purchase that they have. Um, they don't know if they have enough time or for other reasons where I've been working with an individual. One example is I was working with an individual on a background check, and unfortunately, the retailer next to me was also doing a check, and he was saying some things that my customer just did not want to hear. Um, I
Right.
told that individual that, you could leave and there's nothing wrong. I understand. And it's no skin off my teeth. And I could just basically forward your paperwork and you could either go somewhere else or you could come back at another time. Um, there's no penalty that won't get you in trouble. I've done it before where I thought I had enough time to do a background check. I get halfway through the paperwork, look down at my watch and go, yeah, I can't do this.
Right.
It happens. We understand. There's no penalty on that. Now, after the background checks, once they put in the background check, they can still void it out, but you will lose your $10. So that's not terrible. Um, again, but it's just kind of, it gets into that aspect. Now, another note is when you are doing the background check, there's one question that I'm actually going to bring up, get a lot of people that ask is
What's that?
in the case of if an individual gets denied, what is the process? So one thing is when you get denied, at least on the background check system, it is not from the retailer, that is actually from the governing body doing the background check, whether it's the state or the federal agency. They don't tell the retailer what the reasons are. They
Right.
can vary on the plain and simple, which the plain and simple is you can't legally purchase a firearm, and that's, I'm not a psychic, I can't see that. Other ones are, again, there is an individual on the other end of that computer doing, and I have seen some cases where they hit the wrong button. It's stupid, but it happens because it's human error. About 85% of appeals, you do get an appeal sheet and you can basically fax it in, or there's typically an instruction on how to fill it out. That goes directly to the state. It takes a couple of weeks, typically 2 weeks at the quickest. The way that firearm purchases are going from 2020 into this year, it probably will take a little longer. But a good 85% of individuals that fill in that appeal get approved. Again, I don't have the actual place where those statistics are listed, but it is a high number of individuals that just go through the appeal process, and I get a little thing that says, yeah, they could get this gun, and we go back through the background check system all over again, and we go through that. But it happens. I've had a couple of friends where you get it with common names. Unfortunately, names are not as unique as you think. So if your name is John Smith, John Doe, we'll use a John Doe for instance, and there's a John Doe roughly in your area or anything that matches enough, they can go through and go, nope. It's annoying, but it's part of the process. So that's one of the key parts. I wouldn't expect anybody to walk in there and go, "Oh, I'm going to get denied." If you are, I would contact a lawyer to figure out how to resolve those issues. Because again, we're not giving any sort of legal advice. We're just going over how to make the
That's
process
right.
easier for you.
That's
So,
right.
um,
Absolutely. And
and
that's a disclaimer, guys. So, yes,
yeah, well, we don't
very
give
good.
legal advice. So if you know that you are having some issues with your background, I would contact a lawyer and try to figure out how to resolve those issues. They could range from something incredibly minor to something that could be major that you didn't know of. We have had, or I have actually had a coworker where he was denied, and it was found out that he had somebody trying to use his identity. So that's a big thing, and he was able to
Oh, we
uh,
couldn't hear you. We couldn't hear you. You said somebody trying to use his identity.
correct. So not
Okay.
going to list who, but it was just basically somebody had gotten enough information on him and was trying to use it in the wrong way, and that's
Eh,
incredibly common these days now, even with our um, cyber friendliness. It's not uncommon, and unfortunately, it could impact um, your chance of purchasing a firearm. Which again, you would have to contact the lawyer and work with the government agencies to figure out how to resolve getting your identity back. So a loss of identity
wow.
can make things touchy. So yep,
Interesting.
that's
That's
kind
good
of the
information,
bigger
man.
one
Thank you.
there.
Thank you for
So
sharing that with me. Thank you so much. And this is the last question. We 41 minutes in, man. So we doing good. This is the last question here. Is there anything you would like to tell the subscribers before we close? In its
what I would like to say
sweetness
to the
that you
subscribers is like and submit to the comments. Like, leave the comments down below. Like, if you have any questions, by all means, leave a comment.
yes.
I follow his channel, so when I get the chance, I can scroll through and comment and try to help you guys out. Um, if there's any, again, like, get the notifications, follow the channel. That's what you got to do.
Most definitely, man. That's one of the best things there. We're
Mhm.
all a family here. We all unite
Mhm.
and behind, technology, cars, and firearms. That's what this thing is all about. I'm Mr. I'm not from this planet. You know what time it is. I'm flying on my UFO all the time. So, uh, other than that, man, I think you pretty much hit everything. I think what
Oh,
we
yeah.
talked about, we pretty much hit, everything. I really wanted to drill down on some of those questions because when I went in there as a first time gun purchaser, I didn't, buying a firearm, I didn't know the process. I just went in wholeheartedly and just purchased the firearm, and I learned so much in behind it. And I wanted to be able to bring this content to these subscribers, and I think they'll really enjoy this.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's a very, very good thing, man. Thank you so much for coming to the channel. Thank you for, being on the show. Matthew, you are a champ. You always been a champ, and you the motherfucking man. You know that, bro. All right, man.
So,
So we were going to go ahead and close here. I know these guys have a wealth of knowledge here, a lot of new, individuals going out to purchase guns and firearms. Hopefully, this gave you a lot more information to take with you when you're going to purchase your first firearm. So this is a really, really good thing. Again, guys, I apologize about the disconnections and the fuzziness and stuff like that, but we're trying to work through it.
just as a quick recap, if you're just now tuning in and you just want to see the last bit, things to help you out, make sure that you have proper identification with everywhere that you basically where your current address is and all of that information. It's not so keen on how tall or how heavy you are, but they want to know, is this your full name, and is this where you currently live? Others are have your setup. Basically, what firearms do you want to purchase? So have that down as a list of this type of firearm or this category or this price range. Come up with some sort of box for that retailer to work with. Because if not, we're giving you everything under the sun, and you will get bombarded in almost just basically too much thrown at you at once. And then you'll get thrown in a lot of things that you either A, can't afford, or B, it's not in your best interest to go after. And other than that, it's just taking your time on that background check paperwork. That's where I see the most amount of issues is not having proper ID or proper paperwork, not taking enough time on the background check, and not having the right filters set up before going into the shop when looking at firearms. Those are the big three.
Very good. So I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for by. We got another banger here, and it continues. It continues from here on. We're going to keep going on with this thing. So thank you for coming by. It was something else I had to tell you, but I freaking forgot. I'll talk to you later. We got to hit that gun range up too. The new gun range, dude.
There's a couple of them that we've got to go to. Well, you got a long list of gun ranges. There's a couple down there. Now, there is something, I'm going to text you this. There is actually a program, this is kind of an ADHD, is a that you can download from the National Shooting Sports Foundation called Where to Shoot. It is a free download, and for the most part, for participating gun shops, or not gun shops, gun ranges, they will list all of their programs, ranges, and what they have to offer. So, for instance, since you've done a video on Royal Range, we'll use them as a video or as an example. Is they are a participant as well, and they'll list what type of ranges they have. Do they have a gun shop? Do they have other programs such as women programs or beginner lessons, or do they have a gunsmith on site? Some of that information can be a little outdated depending on the shop, but for the most part, it gives you a great idea of where to find shooting ranges in your area. And typically, when there's a shooting range, there are some sort of class. I would highly recommend getting into any sort of class. Knowledge is power.
That's right. Training, most definitely. Training.
Yeah. So, for instance, not just, Tennessee, we just switched over to basically so-called constitutional carry. It's where as long as you are legally able to purchase a firearm, you could carry a firearm. There's some other minor things in there dealing with stalking charges and DUIs. You could take a look on that. It's just a simple Google search. But just because you can legally carry a gun doesn't mean that you actually know how to properly use a firearm in that situation. I would highly recommend getting the training. Poor training can put you in a worse situation than what you are already in. And again, there's a ton of videos out there on how to become better, but signing up for a class in person not only supports shooting ranges in your area, it can also support the retailers that have shooting ranges in your favorite places. That's also another place where you could find people like us to shoot with. We are more than happy to shoot with you. If you're new to shooting, they do have classes out there for you to understand how to properly take your firearm apart to clean it, which will make your accuracy and performance a lot better. Clean firearms are always great. Understanding how your gun works. So again, get a class. I'd just recommend any extra stuff to tag on to that, but sounded too much like a doomsday. If you like this information, put a like down at the comment and just say something down in the comments.
Absolutely. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for coming through, guys. We 54 minutes in, almost 1 hour, but guess what? You got a whole bunch of information here today. Thank you again, Matthew. We done closed like 2 or 3 times, bro, but we
keep trying to close and we just keep bringing it up. Hey, we could go for a 2-hour stream next time.
Oh, guess what? We're going to break those records. We are going to break those records. but not tonight. And you
I think
keep
the
going
shooting-
in and out, but you back again. So we're gonna go ahead and close up, Matthew. Thank you so much, guys. And also to my subscribers, thank you so much for coming through. And remember, I'm not from this planet.